How you doing, YouTube? This is Kevin from Hack Minds. What we're doing here is we're going to be talking about storing your functions and modules, importing classes, and other things. Now, this is just basically the part 2 for the first video that I made earlier. And crap. And I might make a another video on some other stuff that I'm willing to learn. I'm all about showing y'all the process of how I do things. I do have a time-lapse video of this, of me creating this. So if y'all are interested in that, let me know and I will definitely provide that. Now here I don't understand why I'm getting this syntax error, because for simple fact it's simply printed right here about what's going on right here. So I don't know why I'm getting that. So we're just gonna scroll on down, ignore that part, huh? Alright, so here we're going to be understanding what modules are. So a module is a file ending in .py that contains the code that you want to import into your program. So with that being said right there, I just want to rewind. If you see my first video, I remember when we was saving the content from my GitHub into a file, and we put .py at the end of it. And I was telling you that it was for Python code to let your computer know that this is what this is. And then whenever you upload this, it would create a module, which are these two up here with all this code on it. So now explaining an import statement, it simply tells Python to make the code in a module available in the current running program. So that's what we're about to do here. And as you can see here, this is a simple input statement. The inputs stored functions, which is right here. The way we use the import function here in this example, we tell Python all the functions stored in the module. Stored functions, give us access to them and review to. So it's basically just stating that we're just telling Python that we want to get all the functions from here. So here is us importing those functions, or using the functions that we imported. And first we need to give the name of the module where the function is stored, which would be here. And then Shoemaker tells Python we are creating arguments for the function Shoemaker. So I have added another piece of information along with my in my GitHub, and this simply is just the methods, the functions that we're importing, and the class that we're going to be importing later. So, and here I also have an example, explaining everything that this function is doing. So here, first we're going to define this function Shoemaker, and then we're going to give it two parameters, size, and then we're going to give it another one, colors. Now if you remember from the first video, whenever we have this asterisk here, it creates a tulip for the arguments that are being stored into this parameter. And so here we're going to be looking at the doc string, and this is just telling us what this function is for, and it's just simply simulating making shoes. So here we create a print statement, which is a sentence, just basically telling a person that we're making their shoes and the size that they put into this what gave as the argument. And then we got with the colorway, and then so that's all it says. And here we're also converting the numerical representation of the number right here that's going to be given, and converting it into the string representation of the number. Within this for loop, we're just basically telling Python that all the arguments stored into the parameter colors is going to be transferred to the temporary variable color, and then we're going to use it in this print statement, and we're going to add the dot title method to it. So that's how that function works. So over here we're importing and using the function, and we give it the size 12 for that size parameter, and then for that color parameter with the asterisk, it's going to create a tulip with the colors blue, green, and yellow inside of it. And then when we go to print this, or when we go to look at the output from the function call, we're going to see that it telling us exactly what's going on here, and making a size 12 with colorway. And this was that print statement that I was talking about when it was converting the numerical representation. Yeah. So with the string function, this is that. And then we have our three colors used, which are our three arguments for that color parameter. And it's listed right there. So now we're going to talk about importing specific functions. So there are different ways you can import a function. Now, just to recap, this is importing all the modules, all the functions within the module. So this is getting the exact one that we need to complete our job. So there are a few different ways you can import a function, and this is just getting one function from a module, one specific function from a module. So what we put first at the top is from, and then the name of like stored functions of where we want to get that function from, and then we're going to import that function by the name, and let's call this shoemaker, like we did before. If there was multiple functions in here, that would be necessary. But you can also import multiple functions as well, multiple specific functions, and all we have to do is the same starting process. Tell Python that we want to get it from the stored functions, and then we want to import functions 0, 1, 2, and 3. So if I have multiple functions in there and I needed all of them for this program, I would import all of them so I'll have access to them. Now, giving a function alias is just another way of saying nickname, and reasons why you would need to use an alias if the name of the function you're importing is conflicting with the name in your module, and also, as I was speaking earlier, the nickname. This is an example of giving a function an alias. And from stored functions, which is right here, we're going to import shoemaker, and then we're going to import it as sm. So whenever we are ready to use this function, we would just use sm instead, like we have done here. And so we're going to print the title, and that's 1a, which is right here. And then we do sm, which is shoemaker, as you can see. And then we're going to give it the size 16, and we're going to give it the colorway blue and red. So this is going to the color parameter within our function shoemaker. And then we're going to also, since we're printing that out as one, as you can see, blue and red right here. Now, giving a module an alias, so that was just a function. Remember, this is just the function part. And now we're going to give the module alias, and basically all it is just giving it a nickname. And so when we're about to use that module to import that function, we're going to use sf instead of stored functions right here. Now this is the same process as the other one. We're just going to give it the size for the size parameter, and then we're going to give it the color for the color. Now I did it like this just so I could show you that it's taking multiple arguments and storing it inside that parameter. Now if you wanted to import all the functions in a module, all you would simply need to do is give the asterisk operator at the end of the import part, and from stored functions, which would be the module you want to get the function from, and then we're going to import all of them because of that asterisk. Now this is not really meaning nothing just because we're still using only one function, but if you wanted to take the time and create another function and try this process out, you can. That's why it's good to have open source. But that is going to be printed here at 1C, and I'm going to scoot this up a little bit so y'all can see, keep track. Now make sure you guys are taking notes with this, because it's you can always go back and read it, but I'm telling you, it's a way that the mechanical learning or something. Y'all look it up, y'all. Y'all learning stuff now. Look up some more stuff. All right, so we're going to note that all the important statements should be used at the beginning of the file unless using comments to explain. So whenever you're about to import stuff, just get it all ready at the beginning, and that way when you're ready to execute, you ain't got to sit here and import, go back up, all that stuff. All right, now this is intro to classes, and I'm gonna define a few things before giving you the definition of a classes. And Instantiation is basically the fact or act of producing an instance, example, or specific application of general classification, principle, theory, or etc. And these are some of the words you're going to run into. So I'm going to go ahead and get it planted into your head. An instance is a step, stage, or situation viewed as part of the process, series, or events. And I'll show you how all this stuff correlates with what I'm talking about. All right, now explaining a class. A class is just simply defines the general behavior that the whole category of objects can have. The process of making an object for a class is called instantiation. So it goes back to saying this. So instantiation is the fact or act of producing an instance. So this is the process right here. And now we're going to talk about the instances. Instances in a class is information passed to the class from the call of the class. So this like with functions and stuff, it's the same thing as far as the call. You're simply just giving the information and it's feeding back into the to the parameters of that class. So this right here is an instance of a class that is stored into the variable example. And I'll explain more of that later on. In this class, we will be creating a dog, giving him/she a name, age, and the ability to sit and roll over. Now, the class dog is this section right here is defining a class, just like with defining a function. But within this class, we are going to give a doc string that is going to generally summarize the whole operation of this class. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to define the um, init method, and we're going to give that init method self. Now self just generally gives the rest of these methods access to the attributes that are right here. Now, I know you're probably wondering why am I calling these methods when they look like functions, but in a class, these are called methods. And like I said, I have all this stuff explained right here. Right here. Now, but I'm gonna get on this init method part because I want y'all to actually read this instead of if you're just looking or watching a video and doing stuff on your laptop. Now, this is just a special method that Python needs to initialize all the attributes that are used within the other methods for them to operate within the class dog. This method is made up of 2 trailing underscores and 2 leading underscores, which helps Python determine Python's default method names and your method names. So that helps differentiate that, and it helps it from conflicting with your program. So we give the init method 3 parameters, and which was that self I was talking about, which is also right here. And this parameter must be included first when using the init method because it gives the other methods access to the class initialized attributes. And also the self parameter passes automatically, so we don't need to provide an argument when calling this class. Like I said, it just gives the other methods within that class access to the attributes. And now I'm gonna go back up here. Oh yeah, any variable with the prefix self is available, like I was saying right here. So I'm gonna explain this right now. All right, so like I was explaining the inner method, this right here with the prefix is dot names. What we're gonna do is we're going to so put the parameter name, store it into the attribute self dot name, And then we're going to also do the same thing with age, self.age. Now remember, this is what we consider an attribute because we're about to use it on with the contents of it on both of these methods right here. So after we get that established, then we can start actually creating. Then we're going to define a method called sit, which has the self parameter, and that is just basically letting us use the self.name within this string. So basically what this is telling Python is to grab the argument and then put the dot title method on it, and then we're going to say is now sitting on, and it's the same process with the defining rollover. I guess the self parameter, and it gives us access to that attribute that's stored in the init method. So now whenever we call this class, we'll be able to send the arguments all through that. See, I break down every last one of them if you just want to read this. All right, so making an instance from class, which is very simple. I went through all this parameter, yeah. So we all understand what's going on here, right? With this class. All right, so calling the class dog, and here at this part right here, we're just simply telling Python to create an instance. This is how we're creating our instances right here. It's simply just calling the class dog, and then it's giving it the arguments it needs to be able to use these methods and operate properly. So it's still the same thing as functions. You still got to provide arguments. And remember when I said the self parameter doesn't need to be given an argument? That's because, yeah, see that we only gave the name and then we gave the age. And if y'all feel like I'm being repetitive about things, trust me, it'll work out in the long run because it's going to help you remember. All right, so then we're going to take that instance, right? And then we're going to apply the sit method to it. And which this is just going to take this argument for name, and then it's going to just create a sentence for it. And as we can see here at 1, we got Q, which is that first argument, now sitting. And then we got Q to do the rollover right here, and we got Q just rolled over. So it's simple, guys. Just gotta be patient with it. Now, to access attributes of an instance, you simply use the name of the instance, my dog, and the attribute .name you need from there. So here we're going to create a statement using one of the attributes, and as you can see, we're still using the instance, which carries the arguments, and we're going to use name.title, which simply just shows the value held within that parameter. And as we can see how we switched it around. My dog's name is Q, and then we put my dog is plus, and then we're going to convert the age, which was 1, into the string representation to be able to use within this print statement. So as you can see here, as it's being printed, my dog is 1 year old. Isn't that fascinating, my dog? It's pretty cool. All right, so here we're going to be modifying the attributes of an instance, and we're going to skip all the way down here. No, just kidding. All right, look, so we're going to create a class called car for this example, and this is just a simple attempt to represent a car. And within this init method, we're going to provide 4 parameters, and the first one is automatically going to be self every time. And then we're going to provide the make of the car, the model of the car, and then the year of the car. And always remember to have this colon. I know I ain't said it in a while. I feel like I should say it. So. All right, so the doc string is going to initialize attributes to describe a car. So this is what init, get it, init, initialize. All right, cool. So here we're going to create attributes, and we have 3 of them. We're going to assign our parameters to those attributes, and self.make equals make the parameter model, etc. You understand? And then we're going to define the function descriptive info. And then we're going to give it the self parameter just so I can have access to these attributes right here. And then we're going to create a variable, and we're going to be formatting the way we want this information stored in this attribute displayed. And then we're going to return, if y'all remember, it's going to take this format and then return it back to the call line. So that way when we provide the arguments, it would then print out how we want it shown, you know? So, and then we're going to apply it to every letter that's in the value, with every first letter in the values, we're going to give it a capital letter. That's that dot title method, baby. All right, so here we're going to create an instance of car, and we're going to store it into this variable right here. Now, here we're going to give the class that we're going to create the instance for, and then we're going to give the make of the car, which is a BMW, and then we're going to be a M8, the model, and then we're going to do 2020 for the year, and then I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope I get it. But then I'm gonna print the this instance out, and then I'm going to send the arguments through the method descriptive info. All right, so here we have made a BMW M8 2020, baby. Look at them rims. Nah, just kidding. Nah, but here it just shows how we modified the attributes of an instance. And you can see, because we neatly formatted. That's what they mean by modifying. That's all right, so that's explaining all of that. Yeah, read all that. Y'all make sure y'all read this stuff too. It's pretty good. It's a lot more in depth than how I'm explaining it. So I gave you the material. All right, so every attribute in a class needs an initial value, even if that value is 0 or an empty string. So y'all remember that forever. Adding an attribute and a new method to the class card. Let's get it going, girl. All right, so we got we're creating a new attribute, and we're going to give that attribute a default value of 0. So what that means is that whenever we don't need to provide an argument for this because we already have one right here, 0, you know. So then we're going to create a new variable called odometer reading. I mean, not new variable, but a new function called odometer reading. And then we're going to give it access to the attributes in the init method. And then what we're going to do is look at this doc string, and we're going to be like, okay, print statement showing the car mileage. So then we're going to organize it within the print statement on how we're going to use that attribute. So we're going to start with this car has, and then we're going to convert that numerical representation, which would be 0 as the default value, into the string representation, which we can then kind of say miles on it and then make a full sentence out of it. So what is this? This is 1C. Okay, I was right. All right, so modifying the attributes of an instance. This car has 0 miles on it. So that's all it says right there. And then here we as you know, we sent the argument that was needed for that odometer reading to work correctly, which we didn't need one because default value, baby. All right, so now we're going to talk about modifying attributes directly and through a method or increment the value. So here we're going to modify an attribute's value directly. And simply all we're going to do is we're going to come down here. I'm going to let y'all still see the example. All right, so with this this piece of code right here just simply tells Python the instance that is created of car stored into best car. We're going to access the odometer attribute, and then we're going to convert that into 23. So whenever this is processed through Python, this attribute right here is no longer 0, it's 23. And then we're going to send the same instance back through that odometer reading method, and we're going to see the results. And as you can see, the old reading was 0 miles, and the new reading became 25. Hold on, player. Came 25. I don't think that's the right one, guys. Oh, okay. I'm about to say, what? 25? Nah, it's this right here. This car has 23 miles on it. So that's how you modify an attribute directly with a default value. And then we're going to modify an attribute's value through a method. Just a quick note: you can pass the new value to a method that handles the updating internally. So here we're going to modify the class car a little bit. And as you see, we have a new method called update reading. And wait, where is it? There it is. Okay. And then as you can see, the update reading is just simply contains a new parameter called mileage, and the self parameter, which is gives us access to the attributes. And within this method, it sets the odometer reading to a given value and rejects if the argument if is less than the original amount. So basically stating that if the value that's already stored into the odometer reading is less than was stored into mileage, then we're going to give it the else statement right here. But explaining this if statement right here, this is basically just saying if the mileage is greater than the value already stored into this attribute, then we're going to take this attribute and equal it, and then it's going to equal the value stored into this mileage variable right here. And then we're going to look at the else block, and we're going to see that the print is just simply telling Python if the value that's stored in mileage is less than what's at that attribute, then we're going to say we can't roll back your odometer. So I hope that makes sense, guys, because it sounds like a lot. And as you can see here, that's the new default value. Print modifying an attribute's value through a method. So here we're going to just create an instance for the car, which will still be my BMW, and then we're going to print that. Right, what is this? 2A, and then we're going to print that right here. So here we're going to show you the old odometer reading. So first we're going to take that instance, and then we're going to put that through this right here, and we're going to show you that this car right now got 0 miles on it. So here for a best car update reading, as you can see, we have to provide an argument. Now this argument is provided because of the mileage parameter that is right here inside of the method updating reading. So with that 25, we then is going to be stored here into here. So this if statement then compares this value 25 to this attribute's current value now. And as you know that this is 0, we then have to go to the indented piece of code right here, and we take the value that's stored in this mileage right here parameter, which is 25. We're going to take it and put it inside this attribute right here. So now the new value is 25. But if the mileage so happened to be less, then we would have got you can't roll back the odometer. So, and I also have that explained here too, right here. See how I put the argument as 12 and the new value is 25. It gives you can't roll that back that odometer right here. Now we're going to talk about incriminating an attribute. So the definition of incriminate is to increase the value of something by one or any number you choose. Sometimes you'll want to incriminate an attribute's value by a certain amount rather than set an entire new value. And this method allows you to do that. I mean, this class allows you to do that. So, let me scroll down a little bit more so we can see everything. All right, so here we're going to add a new method to the bottom of this. Now, this new method just simply says incriminate the odometer. So give it the self parameter, and then we're going to give it a new parameter called miles. Now, this new value is going to be added on to what is already stored into the data, or what is already stored into that attribute odometer. So whenever we call this method, we're going to have to give the this method right here an argument for that variable. I mean, for that parameter right there. So it takes this parameter, boom, and it's going to add it to what was in there before, which was 25. Now we get 47. It was 25. Oh, no, it was 12. My bad, guys. I like that. I remember being 25. But I forgot I updated it right here. So I gave it 25, 35. So that's 47. Told y'all I know what I'm talking about. Got this, though. Y'all just believe in me. All right. So here we're going to talk about intro to inheritance. Yeah, I need some. All right. So everybody know what inheritance is. And I don't feel like I should have to explain that. When one class inherits from another, it automatically takes all the attributes and the methods of the first class. So, the parent class is the original class we're inheriting from. So that is just basically stating like car right now would be the parent class, and the child class is the class that has all the attributes and methods from the parent class. So that would be this electric car class right here. And the super function that helps Python make a connection between the parent class and the child class. And now we're going to create a child class called electric car, and it's going to inherit from that previous class we created, which was car. As you can see, everything is still here. And here's the electric car class. Now, this tells Python to define a new class named electric car with one parameter, car, which is the class car. So I know that sounds confusing, but basically we're just telling Python to take this class and then store it into this right here, the electric car class. All right, we're gonna break this down. All right, so the doc string obviously is just telling us that we're going to this is going to be representing aspects of a car specific to electrical vehicles. And now now the super dot init make model year. Oh yeah, wait, I'm tripping. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. All right, so first I gotta define the init method. Let me just, cause I'm trying to explain the super the way the way I learned it, but the exact way. So I did get the exact definition for this, but I'm gonna explain this first part. So first we're going to define the init method for the class electric car with self, make, model, and year. And then we're going to have to put in the super method, the super function, which which gives the connection between what the parameters were for the car class. So as you can see here, tells Python to let the child class electric car have access. The super is what's given as access, and to the attributes make, model, year in the parent class car. So with that being explained, we're going to create an instance of this child class. And what we're going to do is we're going to call the electric car class, and then we're going to feed it three arguments: Tesla, Module S, and 2016, make, model, and year. And then we're going to create a print statement which takes that instant of that electric car class, and then it feeds that info through the descriptive info class the descriptive info method stored inside of its parents class car. Because if you notice, this class right here is empty and only has the init method inside of it. So now we're going to define attributes and methods for the child class. And simply all we're going to do is just define the battery info. And okay, first we're going to define the method battery info and give it the self parameter, which gives us access to default value of for the battery size and this attribute. Okay, and then we're going to create an instance for this. Now this is 1A, so this is basically going to send that instance, and then we're just going to get battery info right here. This right here converts that number 70 into a string representation, if y'all remember, for that attribute. Sorry that it sounds like I'm going kind of fast, but I feel like at this point we should have a pretty good grasp on things. And if you can't really keep up with the video, like I said, I got all the information I'm explaining right here. Just a reminder. Overriding methods from the parent class. Say if there's a method in the parent class that you didn't want to use in your child class, you can override that method from the parent class by rewriting the method from the parent class inside the child class. Okay. All right. So, all right. Let's say in our parent class, which is car, that we have a method that when used, it tells you to fill the gas, right? So an electric car, to have that same method, or if somebody was to try to call that same method under the child class instance, um, you'll get this print statement right here, and this is just simply rechanging what this previous method in the parent class did, just in case somebody was to like fill gas or no use this method right here, because you gotta remember they're connected now. So like in real life, little baby electric car. All right, so now we're going to create a class for just handling the battery, and this is a good way of organizing your your class. Your programming and stuff, because the idea is that we're all gonna we have a specific method for each thing that we need to do. Um, all right, where are we? All right, so here we're basically defining a class called battery file, and this is basically just keeping all the information that we was going to use in the electric car. Instead of having it just built up like that, we can just simply give it a space inside of electric car, but have a whole class doing a whole bunch of other functions, just in case. Just to keep it from not having a long list of code within your class. So here we're going to separate the battery information from the actual electric car class. So here we define the init method and with the parameter self, and then we're going to give it a default value parameter with 70. So under here is the doc string, which initializes the battery's attributes. Self dot battery size equals battery size. So it's basically taking that parameter and storing it to this attribute. And then we're going to define battery info self, printing the battery size and how far you can go. So what this is basically going to be telling us is that if the battery size is equal to 70, which it is, then the range of how far that battery will go before it dies is 240 miles. And if the range is not 70 and it's 85, then it just simply states that the range is 270, about how far it can go. So now we're going to create a message variable inside of this class battery file, so that way we can be able to give them the proper information about what's being processed here. So this card can go approximately, for our sake, it's going to be 70. 240 miles. And what we're doing here is just converting the 240 into a string representation, and then we're going to take the variable name message and do plus equal, and then have the string miles on four charts. So this basically just completes uh, this whole sentence. Instead of having it all the way out here, we just simply add it to the end within the process. And then we're going to print out that message. And as you can see here, 70, oh no, right here, 240 miles. Let me see. All right. So after we get after we get that situated, we then come to the class electric car, and this is just representing. This is the same class that we had earlier. The only difference is it doesn't talk about the battery, and instead it has an attribute called self.battery folder, which is this whole class, and then we're going to store it inside of this attribute. We're going to store the actual class. So as you can see here, you see battery file there, and then you see hold on guys, and you see battery file up here. We're just doing it easier. We're already creating having an instance ready for whenever we want to use that class. So to better explain this, first we're going to create an instance for electric car, and then we're going to provide it three arguments: Tesla, Model S, and 16 for make, model, and year. And then we're going to create another print statement organizing this information. And we're going to take that instant, and then we're going to pass it straight through the descriptive info um, method, which is in the class car. And then we're going to take that instant, and then we're going to get the attribute, use the attribute battery folder, which is just the instance of the class, which is just an instance of the class battery file. Now, here we're going to get battery info. So what we then are going to look at is at battery info, and seeing how it already has a default value in there, it's just going to automatically put out 240 miles for the range of the for how far it can go. And as you can see that right down here. All right. So this is just basically importing a class and a function. And the reason why I took that down is because with this function gunmaker, I mean the class gunmaker, we're going it has if statements in it, so it doesn't process that well on that. But I'm gonna show you what this class looks like. All right, so this is the class gunmaker, and this is just simply simulating buying bullets for a gun. So what we're defining in the init method is self, and then we're going to do a caliber with an empty string, and then we're going to initialize attributes for the init method, and I'm just going to put one attribute, which is for the caliber. And then we're going to define right ammo and asking users what size caliber they have. All right, so the message is going to be an input that we're going to need from the user, and the prompt is going to state what size caliber is your gun. Now, if they only got 2 calibers, but in this if statement, it's just stating that if they input 40, then it's going to add that number to this attribute right here. Now, if uh, they choose a caliber size 9, then it's going to also add that value to this attribute right here. And then I just created this just because it was kind of cool, searching. I was actually doing something. And then I defined come again. This originally I think was designed for something else, but I just switched it to this and never changed the name. But recommending customers ammo to purchase. Now, in this if statement, we are simply stating that if the attribute self.caliber is equal to 40 from the input that was given, we're going to recommend that they buy the Remington 180 grain Golden Saber. All right. But if it's a 9, then we're going to recommend you buy Federal HTS 124 grain. Got some good things flowing here. And then, I guess I never called it, right? All right. So, and then that's pretty much all this does right here. And like I said, I got everything broken down right here. Now, within this part, we're going to call this, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to run this. I'm going to run it for you guys so I can show you how what it does. All right. So, let me scroll this down. All right. So, this is what the instance, when creating for the gunmaker class. Now, this is the argument that we have to provide for caliber. And then this is the instance, and then we're going to send it through the right ammo. So this is what the right ammo is. We're asking the person what size caliber is your gun. And then we're going to, whoa, hold on, homeboy. Hold on now. All right, so, too far. All right, so here we're going to put 40. You get on my face? All right, we put 40 here. And then we're going to press enter. Oh, I know why I did that. This is going too fast. Slow down, huh, boy? Dang it. Now you want to give me a hard time when we at the end, huh? All right, so here you can see 2A, importing a single class, and this is the input statement, and this is the cool part right here. Look at that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it's spelled wrong. It's all right. And then we're gonna recommend that they buy the Remington Golden Golden Saber. I don't know. I really just looked that up. I didn't know what kind of stuff to recommend. But yeah, that's how that handles that. So this right here is all how everything is decided. As you can see, 40 right here, 40. We write the come again part. All right. Now we're going to import multiple classes methods from a class. So right here, we're just going to import. Remember how I had function 0, 1? This is the import. We're going to tell Python to get the methods and classes from stored functions module. And then we're going to import shoemaker. And then we're going to import gunmaker. So after that, we come down here and then we divide the two. And then we just create the same process. And then we give them the same colorway. Like we've been doing this all day. And if you really need a whatchamacallit, then I have it all broken down right here. Next, this is importing an entire module if you want to. These are other ways to import classes and stuff. Now, this is the end of this video. I hope everything was explained clearly. If not, please let me know at the bottom. If you need any other help with anything, just let me know. And if you could, when you go to my YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. I can't show it because I don't know if it's going to mess up the video. But yeah, I'm uploading part 1 right now. And it's dang 2 hours, god dang. Y'all just be ready. Now I got you guys. But yeah, keep going, and I'm gonna keep posting videos of things that I'm interested in learning and all that kind of cool stuff. And if it helped you, refer it to a friend and have them look at it. You have the material, share the material, do whatever you want with it. Shoot, if you don't like my video on it, create another tutorial video on it and do whatever. But y'all could like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.